everyone, and thank you for being here. My name's Isabella Brown, and today we're going to be talking about protein. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This presentation is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any condition. My goal is simple, to give you the information you need to make choices that best fit your unique body and lifestyle. Remember, a healthy diet is a varied one, and protein is just one piece of that puzzle. So what exactly is protein? Well, it's one of the three main macronutrients alongside carbs and fats. Think of it as a long chain made up of smaller building blocks called amino acids. Protein has many critical roles in the body, but its most important jobs include building and repairing tissue, from our muscles to our skin, and transporting nutrients, acting as a delivery service throughout our body. You've probably seen a lot about high protein diets on social media, especially for weight loss, but there's real science behind why it works. First, it boosts your metabolism. Protein has a higher thermic effect of food, which means your body actually burns more calories just digesting it compared to fat and carbs. Two, it helps manage blood sugar. Protein slows down the absorption of sugar. This prevents large blood sugar spikes, which in turn reduces the release of insulin, a hormone that can promote fat storage. Eating protein first in a meal can be especially effective in managing blood sugar. And third, it preserves and builds muscle. When you exercise, protein is essential for building muscle. More muscle mass means you burn more calories all day long. During a diet, getting enough protein helps ensure you lose fat, not muscle. This is key to preventing the common rebound weight gain that many people experience after a diet. Now, where do we get protein? Protein can come from animal or plant-based sources. Animal-based sources are meat, poultry, seafood, eggs, and dairy products. Plant-based sources are legumes like beans and lentils, soy products like tofu and edamame, nuts, seeds, and certain grains. And in the future, keep an eye out for algae. It's currently being studied as a powerful, sustainable protein source. Now for the big question, how much do you actually need? The current recommended dietary allowance, or RDA, is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. This is the minimum amount needed to prevent deficiency. However, a growing body of research suggests our optimal needs might be much higher. In the past, nitrogen balance was used, but this old method for determining protein needs was found to be less accurate. New, more precise gold standard methods show that many of us could benefit from more protein than the baseline recommendations. To figure out your personal needs, you first need to know your weight in kilograms, so get out your calculators. It's pretty simple though. Your weight in pounds divided by 2.2 is your weight in kilograms. This is a helpful number to know as most nutritional guidelines use it. For individuals who are overweight or obese with a BMI over 24, a standard calculation might overestimate your needs, so in this case, an adjusted body weight is often used. The formulas are listed here on the slide, but the easiest way to figure this out is to use an online adjusted body weight calculator. But use your best judgment when choosing which weight to use. Your body weight might be higher because maybe you have more fluid on you or you have more muscle. So once again, just use your best judgment. You can use an average. You could pick your actual body weight, ideal body weight, whatever is going to work best for you. For athletes, protein is a non-negotiable for performance and recovery. Newer research shows that endurance athletes, like long distance runners, need about 1.2 to 1.8 grams per kilogram to maintain muscle. And after a very long or intense session, this can increase to 2.1 to 2.6 grams per kilogram to support recovery. To build and maintain muscles, strength athletes need about 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. It's important to note that most of these studies were on younger athletes. Older athletes may need even more as their body ability to build muscle becomes less effective with age. Protein needs also increase significantly during other life stages, such as pregnancy and breastfeeding. In the first and second trimesters, needs increased to 1.2 to 1.66 grams per kilogram, and in the third trimester, it's 1.5 to 1.77 grams per kilogram. For breastfeeding women, this need is surprising. It's 1.7 to 1.9 grams per kilogram, which is similar to an elite athlete. And this is likely based on pre-pregnancy weight. The studies didn't say whether it was pre-pregnancy or the actual body weight, but I'm assuming it's pre-pregnancy weight. As we age, we suffer from anabolic resistance, which means our body needs more protein to stimulate muscle building. So our protein needs are also going to increase as we get older. Menopause leads to estrogen decline, which leads to muscle loss and increased fat. Insulin resistance also makes this cycle worse. Older men also suffer from muscle loss due to age-related decline, inactivity, testosterone decline, malnutrition, chronic disease. And multiple studies show that higher protein intake in older adults preserves strength, improves body composition, their general health, and their physical function. For an elderly inactive adult, the protein recommendations are 1 to 1.3 grams per kilogram of body weight. Some studies show that this may even apply to adults in their 40s. While your total daily protein is important, how you distribute it matters too. To maximize muscle protein synthesis or our body's ability to build muscle, aim to eat 0.24 to 0.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight at each meal. For an extra boost, make sure each meal contains about 2.5 grams of leucine. Leucine is a key amino acid that acts like a switch to turn on the muscle building pathway. Whey protein is famously rich in leucine, but you can also find it in soy, beef, mozzarella, peanuts, and other nuts and grains. 25 grams of whey protein would be an adequate amount of leucine during a meal. Let's compare plant and animal proteins, starting with the benefits of plants. One benefit of consuming plant-based proteins is that they contain antioxidants, micronutrients, and fiber. The antioxidants can help modulate exercise-induced oxidative stress in endurance athletes, which reduces risk for illness and injury. This does not mean that endurance exercises are bad for you, but if we don't nourish our bodies properly after them, they can lead to increased illness and injury. Observational studies also show vegetarians have lower incidence of heart disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes, but this may be because they were eating more plants in general and less saturated fats, or maybe they were wealthier, more educated, so it's kind of hard to say if it's directly caused by the vegetarian diet, but it is an interesting observation. And a vegetarian diet can also be more cost effective and more sustainable than a carnivore diet. One concern with consuming plant-based proteins are that they have an inadequate amino acid composition, so you may have heard them be called incomplete proteins. They also don't usually contain a lot of protein per serving. For example, half a cup of beans has 6 grams of protein, while 4 ounces of chicken has 18 grams of protein. They also lack certain nutrients such as B12, zinc, iron, and calcium, and they may be less digestible, and protein may be less bioavailable than animal proteins. Some studies show that raw plant proteins were 15 to 20% less bioavailable than raw animal proteins, and one of the reasons is that they contain anti-nutrients such as trypsin inhibitors, phytates, oxalates, phenolinic compounds, and tannins. But the good news is we don't usually eat meat or plants raw. If you follow a vegetarian diet, eat a variety of plant proteins to make sure you're getting enough of each amino acid. For example, beans and rice are complementary proteins, so they each have amino acids the other one lacks. Different plant proteins don't have to be consumed at the same meal, but doing so can help with meal planning and making sure you're eating enough of each food. The good news is most cultural groups already follow this pattern, and this is probably due to past biological stressors. For example, those who ate rice and beans together probably survived the famine, and so they passed on those traditions to their kids, and now we follow the same dietary patterns. To make sure you're eating enough protein overall, eat a larger volume of plant-based proteins. This can be difficult sometimes because to consume 30 grams of protein in beans at one meal, you would have to eat about 2.5 cups of beans. You can also improve protein digestibility by cooking your plant-based proteins. Most studies that show plant proteins were inferior to animal proteins measured the availability of uncooked or untreated foods. Cooking plant-based proteins improves protein digestibility, and methods that were effective include germination, fermentation, high pressure, low temperature, and shorter cooking times. High temps and longer cooking times decrease protein digestibility. For example, in one study, cooking beans at 100 degrees Celsius was more effective than 140. One study showed that soaking beans for 6 hours improved digestibility by 4% and in 18 hours by 21%. So a strategy you could use is soaking your beans for a long time and then putting them in an Instapot or a slow cooker at a low heat for a shorter amount of time. Other ways to improve protein bioavailability is to eat leucine-rich foods after exercise, use probiotics and digestive enzymes, and correct low gastric acid if it exists. Gastric acid can be low if you use Tums or an antacid, or if you have a history of malnutrition or an eating disorder, or severely lower your calorie intake. But there are many other reasons you may have low gastric acid, so if you suspect this, definitely talk to your doctor about it. Most of the meta-analysis showed that a variety of cooked plant proteins, if consumed in an adequate amount, were adequate to meet nutrient needs for muscle protein synthesis, even in the elderly and athletes. Here are some other things to consider when it comes to protein. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but consider limiting your red and processed meat consumption. Processed meats are those that have been transformed through salting, curing, fermentation, smoking, or other processes to enhance flavor or improve preservation. These include hot dogs, ham, sausages, corned beef, beef jerky, canned meats, and meat-based sauces. And it doesn't matter if they were made out of beef, pork, chicken, turkey, they were all considered Group 1 carcinogens by the World Health Organization, which means that there is enough evidence to conclude it causes colorectal cancer. That means for every 50-gram portion of processed meat, it increases colon cancer risk by 18%. Red meat is mammal muscle meat. The red meat we often consume is beef, veal, pork, lamb, mutton, horse, goat, and moose, and those are Group 2A carcinogens, which means they're probably carcinogenic to humans and may increase your risk of pancreatic, prostate, or colon cancer. Cooking meat at high temperatures, like on the barbecue or pan frying, also produces carcinogenic chemicals, and nitrates and nitrites have also been linked to an increased colorectal cancer. Patients who have chronic kidney disease should limit their protein to 0.6 to 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, and people who have PKU should also limit their protein intake. It may be difficult to stay within your calorie goals and consume an adequate amount of other nutrients if you're eating an extremely high level protein. And just remember, excess protein can still become fat. A high protein diet can become harmful if it's filled with high levels of red meat or processed meat like we talked about earlier, so having a variety of protein sources can help prevent harm. There are a lot of benefits to consuming a higher protein diet, but don't hyperfocus on protein. 10 to 35% of our calories should come from protein, but 40 to 50% should come from carbs, and about 15 to 30% from fat. Carbs are still important for energy and muscle sparing, so don't try to follow a keto diet. If we aren't eating carbs, our bodies will use protein from our muscle for energy, and it can lead to muscle loss and long-term weight gain. Undigested proteins can go to the colon, which can cause inflammation in the gut, but this can be mitigated by consuming adequate fiber and resistant starch, like cooked pasta or green bananas. And just remember, a healthy diet usually includes high fiber grains, fruits, vegetables, lean protein, and unsaturated fats. Thanks for listening, and make sure to subscribe before you go. Thank you.